at in Houston when we did a service project. No, it's been like 5 years now. But they had a taped off area for the pastor so that he knew where he could walk and stay in view of the camera. And then they also had a timer in front of him because it's this huge church right across the street from NASA, and so they have a gazillion bunch of different services, and so to make sure everyone gets in and out and the pastors get to all the services, there was a timer so you have this long. We've allotted this amount of time for the sermon, and cut off and go. But the joys and challenges of technology, huh? All right, and my remote works too, so great. All right, so welcome to Bible class this morning. We're continuing our series on the minor prophets, talking today about Habakkuk, which, as I was telling my mom, most of what I remembered about him before I started studying this was that my home pastor said his father was a seminary classmate of Habakkuk. So, trying to say how old he is, but... All right, so Habakkuk, though, is one of the minor prophets. His name means embracer in Hebrew, or at least comes from the Hebrew word for embrace. And all we know about him is this book. Nothing else is mentioned about him anywhere else in the Bible. There's some extra biblical stuff we won't get to today, but so that's generally it. What we know about him is in this 3-chapter book. But he's writing based on what he's writing about and how God's talking, that he's writing in this period from about 609 to 598 BC. Because this is the time then when, because he's talking about the Babylonians, talking about the Chaldeans, and this is the time that they are rising up. I think it was 612 BC that they revolt and destroy the Assyrian, conquer the Assyrians. They fight with the Egyptians, and part of what's going on here is you've got the wicked king in Judah who's trying to play off the Babylonians and the Egyptians against each other, and in the hopes that he won't have to keep paying tribute to the other one, and it doesn't work too well. So because you get one king's taken into exile into Egypt and dies, one king's taken into exile in Babylon, and then in 587 is when the Chaldeans come and destroy Jerusalem and take everyone away and kill the king and his family and all that fun stuff. But this is I'm trying to think where else I was going, but so this is a very unsettled time, and so Habakkuk is looking around, seeing all the bad stuff that's happening in Israel and in Judah, because this is only the southern kingdoms in existence. The northern kingdom had gotten wiped out by the Assyrians about 100 years earlier, and so Habakkuk's going, God, why aren't you doing anything about Judah? And he says, well, I'm gonna wipe them out. And Habakkuk isn't thrilled about that, but then they keep the dialogue going, and he trusts in God even when God doesn't seem to be doing what he wants him to do. All right, so again, Judah, the southern kingdom, is caught between Egypt and Babylon and the Chaldeans. And so again, that's always that challenge for Israel, where it's kind of right on that path that all these major empires that we hear about are, as they travel through and expand, Israel's right there, between Egypt, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, Persians over here, and then in the New Testament you get the Greeks and the Romans coming from the north. So it's just kind of right on that pathway of going through things, and so they're. And again, when they escape from slavery in Egypt and get there, it's kind of a vacuum. Egypt's power is declining. Babylon's not doing too much. Greeks aren't doing a whole lot of anything yet. And so they're able to expand peacefully. And then now at this time, Egypt's been growing in power. the Assyrians had grown in power. Now the Babylonians had revolted against the Assyrians and had conquered them, and were starting to go here. There's a big battle between the Babylonians and the Egyptians. And I'm trying to remember, Josiah, the king, dies in one of those battles. So bad time. So this is again, so here's Babylon. Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire, was kind of up this way. And so they're expanding, getting down into Judah there. Again, at this point, they're happy to be just accepting tribute for the moment, but the kings are going to try and rebel and tick them off, and then they will get conquered. All right, so Habakkuk 1. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help and you will not hear, or cry to you violence and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me, strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. All right, so what's Habakkuk's complaint here?
It seems that God's doing anything.
Yeah, God, where are you? Why aren't you doing anything? There's all this bad stuff's happening. Where are you? Why aren't you doing anything? All right, what does he expect God to do about what he's seeing?
Destroy the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean, come rescue us, come destroy the bad guys, and destroy the wicked. Forgetting that. Well, wait, we're the wicked. All right. Any other thoughts there?
Sounds like us, doesn't it?
This is. I mean, again, you think this, minor prophet 26, 2700 years ago. Oh yeah, nothing he's writing applies to us today, right? It's all outdated, antiquated, out of touch. Nope. All right. So then God's response to Habakkuk. Look among the nations and see, wonder and be astounded, for I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told. So, again, I'm going to do something, you won't believe it even if I tell you. For behold, I am raising up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation, who march through the breadth of the earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are dreaded and fearsome, their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than the evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swift to devour. They all come for violence, all their faces forward. They gather captives like sand. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh. They laugh at every fortress, for they pile up earth and take it. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on, guilty men, whose own might is their God. So these sound like a nice, happy people to be dealing with, right? So, all right. So what did you catch? Is how are these Babylonians, the Chaldeans, described here?
Their power is their God.
Their power is their God, right? They've got a lot of power, and their power is their God.
Sounds like they're unstoppable.
Yeah, sounds like they're unstoppable.
It does.
Yep.
Fast.
Yeah. They're, again, powerful to begin with, and then God's raising them up, so God's using them which makes them even more unstoppable, which is, why, Jehoiakim, you really shouldn't be putting your trust in the Egyptians to fight these guys for you. It's not going to end well. But yeah, that's the pile up earth and take it. That's kind of how you handled sieges. Generally, you get to a fortress. I can't get to it. Well, then, and the Romans were really good at this later on. Well, then we build a ramp to get up over the walls. If you don't have the siege engines, those giant ladders or ropes with grappling hooks on them or something. Well, so you can protect your army built long enough to build up a ramp. Then you just walk up and get to the top of the walls that way, and All right, so why would God do this, though? Why would God use Babylon to punish Judah?
Because he's God.
Because he's God, right. I mean, ultimately that's where we are, that, this is, we don't always understand why God's doing what he's doing. And ultimately we're kind of left like that too. But we can make some guesses.
You're saying God could have just done it himself.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but he used Babylonians.
Right. I mean, God could have judged them in any number of ways. Well, and we've heard through the minor prophets that other prophets that he has. He's sent drought and plague and pestilence and things, and that hasn't gotten through to these, stiff-necked Israelites. Maybe you should, listen to God and the prophets and not trust in your own power and your own might and your own in these other gods. But they don't listen, so God says, okay, well, let's get your attention this way. All right. So then Habakkuk's second complaint. So Habakkuk complains, God, why aren't you doing anything? No one's getting justice. God says, well, I've raised up these Babylonians. And so now Habakkuk is like, well, that's not quite what I was thinking. All right. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, you have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O Rock, have established them for reproof. You who are of purer eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong, why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. He brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his dragnet, so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to his dragnet. For by them he lives in luxury and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? All right. So that's the end of Habakkuk's second complaint, using all this kind of fishing metaphors, again, of fish hooks and nets and drag nets and things. And some of that's also partly how the Assyrians and the Chaldeans would sometimes, have these giant hooks they'd stick people on. So, again, not nice people. All right, so then Habakkuk, second chapter, Habakkuk ends this dialogue with God by saying, well, I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. And so he decides he's going to stand out on the watchtower. What he can do, he can wait for God to answer and see if he can get God to make sense here. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time, it hastens to the end, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay. All right. So couple things here. Again, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. Again, there's some debate over whether this means the message needs to be light enough that someone can run carrying it, or whether this is giant billboard that as you run by you will be able to read. It's big enough that you can still read it as you run by, and clear enough. It's not something with a bunch of little fine print at the bottom that you miss. I think it's probably more that second one, but the billboard thing.
It'd be like a vermicelli sign.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, yep, like those. Yeah, those progressive signs that you see on farm fields sometimes. That you have to keep running, keep reading to get the whole message. All right, and again, God says so this judgment is coming, but again, we're not totally sure on the dates of Habakkuk, but there's kind of a 20-year gap here between when this is happening, and so okay, God's judgment's coming. Well, Why are we still waiting? Well, God says, if it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It'll come at its appointed time. It'll come when God says it will. And wait for it. And again, why wait? Why is God patient? Because he wants them to repent. He wants to save them. Even if they don't, God wants to give them every chance, same as us. All right. So, behold, his soul is puffed up, it is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. All right, so again, that's quoted 3 times in the New Testament. Paul quotes it in Romans. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. And so Paul quotes it there. Then in Galatians, that was the epistle lesson that we had this morning. That again, that now it's evident that no one is justified before God by the law, for the righteous shall live by faith. So again, as Paul's dealing with the Galatians, who are trying to figure out, how Jewish do Christian converts need to be, and there's a group saying, well, you have to have the whole law before you can become a Christian, and Paul's saying no. And he can go back to Habakkuk, so we're quoting scripture that his Jewish opponent should be agreeing to and know. Say, well, Habakkuk said the righteous shall live by faith, and so this is what he meant by that. And then it gets quoted in Hebrews as well. For yet a little while, and the coming one will come and will not delay, but my righteous one shall live by faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. All right, so again, kind of quoting again, pointing to Jesus and his righteousness for us, and how we know that our righteousness comes by faith there. All right, any thoughts, questions, comments there? All right, Habakkuk 2 coming on. All right, so moreover, wine is a traitor, an arrogant man who is never at rest. His greed is as wide as Sheol, like death he never has enough. He gathers for himself all nations and collects as his own all peoples. All right, so again, he's talking about God's talking about the Chaldeans, and they're going to be like the grave, like Sheol. They're will never be satisfied with anything that they get. They're just going to keep swallowing things up, but their pride will be their undoing. I don't know that this is necessarily a prophecy, but when I read this, remembering the Babylonians, we don't hear the story that often, but you remember. So Daniel's one of the people that gets taken into exile around this point, and so he's in Babylon and gets to deal with the king. And when new King Belshazzar comes, what does he do? He throws a party and decides, hey, there's these great silver cups that we stole from the Israelites. Let's use them. Oh, they're from the temple, and God doesn't like the fact that we're using these things from the temple. And so then they get the writing on the wall, and the judgment's coming on them, and that's because the Persians, just like the Babylonians rose up and rebelled and conquered the Assyrians, so the Persians rise up and rebel and conquer the Babylonians. So don't drink wine from sacred vessels. It's a bad idea, or when you're not supposed to. All right. So then the rest of chapter 2 of Habakkuk are these kind of 5 woes, 5 judgments that are going to come on the Babylonians, on the Chaldeans. All right. So, shall not all these take up their taunt against him with scoffing and riddles for him, and say, woe to him who heaps up what is not his own, for how long, and loads himself with pledges? Will not your debtors suddenly arise, and those awake who will make you tremble? Then you will be spoil for them. Because you have plundered many nations, all the remnant of the people shall plunder you, for the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities and all who dwell in them. So again, God's going to send justice on the Babylonians, that even though he's raised them up to punish Judah, that doesn't get them off the hook Well, it's like you plundered these nations, so other nations are going to plunder you. And so it goes. All right, then the second woe. Woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, to set his nest on high, to be safe from the reach of harm. You have devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples. You've forfeited your life. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam from the woodwork respond. All right. All right, so again, you've been... Think you've built your house safe enough. It's not going to be safe enough from God's judgment to come. And so some of these are woes that specifically deal with the Babylonians, but some of them have kind of a wider view, wider application too. All right, the third woe. Woe to him who builds a town with blood and founds a city on iniquity. Behold, is it not from the Lord of hosts that peoples labor merely for fire, and nations weary themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. All right. And so that's kind of, again, looking ahead to that, the promise of when God will come and will bring justice, that the earth will be filled with the knowledge just as of God, just as the waters cover the sea. And so even when we get these, in the midst of judgment, we get these little glimmers of hope, promises of what God's going to do to help his people later on.
Seems like a familiar phrase, as the waters cover the sea. Is that the only place?
I'm trying to remember. It almost sounds like it's like a Pentecost or something, but and could be a psalm too. I didn't double check on that to see where else it is. But.
It makes me think about what's going on with A1. I mean, they're thinking that, the computers are just going to take over,
Oh, yeah.
for us. And each person is supposed to have their own A1 that's going to be comforting them and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the knowledge of... They're trying to discover what God knows, I guess.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But if it's supposed to be, filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord,
Yeah.
that's, hopefully that's what's going to triumph over all of this that's happening. Because the waters do cover the sea, and if that's, that's the Pope, that's great. And we can take a lot of comfort in that. I mean,
Well, maybe all the artificial intelligent robots will be spewing Bible verses all day long and singing hymns, you think?
Right. Well, I mean, I've seen people try to start using Chat GPT to, because right now, at least that one, tends to be more of it works because it can siphon off all of this vast amount of knowledge on the internet and stick it together, but it doesn't bother checking that it's accurate. It sticks it together, and it plagiarizes from things. So, so it tends to not work super well yet. But I mean, I've seen people try and use that for sermons and things, just kind of let's see what this does with this passage. And when it sucks up just everything on the internet, it's going to get some good stuff and some bad stuff.
Well, it can't ever have an original thought.
No, we haven't made that jump yet.
Breathing, thinking. No,
it's really good. They're really good copiers and plagiarizers at the moment. Not original. So, and kind of gets to it, that difference between knowledge and wisdom. The knowledge is kind of knowing what to do. Wisdom is how to do it. What is it? Knowledge is knowing tomatoes are fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad then. So there's that difference, and reminds us too that knowing who God is and knowing the glory of God. Well, again, people are going to know the glory of God either because they've seen it and trusted Him, or because they see that His judgment coming. Know that either way. Or gets at that. The two kinds of faith, the faith that believes all the doctrines and has, the faith checklist kind of thing, and then the faith that trusts is the more important.
It's kind of like the more you find out, the more you see how glorious it is of what God did.
Right. Yeah, the more you look at something and go, oh wait, God did that.
It's discovering
Yes.
that God has known all along.
Yep. All right, fourth woe. Woe to him who makes his neighbors drink. You pour out your wrath and make them drunk in order to gaze at their nakedness. You will have your fill of shame instead of glory. Drink yourself and show your uncircumcision. The cup in the Lord's right hand will come around to you, and utter shame will come upon your glory. The violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, as will the destruction of the beasts that terrified them. For the blood of man and violence to the earth, to cities and all who dwell in them. All right. So again, the judgments are coming kind of parallel. So you got your neighbor drunk and they wandered around naked. Well, that's going to happen to you too. So again, judgment is coming. The violence done to Lebanon will overwhelm you. Destruction of the beasts that terrified them will come. Again, we saw the Chaldeans, Babylonians described as all these beasts of, their horses are like leopards and eagles and all that kind of thing. All right, and then the fifth woe. What profit is an idol when its maker has shaped it, a metal image, a teacher of lies? For its maker trusts in his own creation when he makes speechless idols. This might have some applications to AI too, right? Woe to him who says to a wooden thing awake, to a silent stone arise. Can this teach? Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all in it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. All right, so you make idols. They may look nice, covered in silver and gold, but the wood, the stone, has no breath in it, can't teach. But God's in his temple. Let the earth keep silence before him. So God's better than any of these idols that you're trying to trust in.
So would Habakkuk and some of these others have a bounty on their head for what they've they've written?
It varied. I mean, there's some. Jeremiah, probably most famously, he gets tossed in a cistern and some other stuff like that. So there's certainly those moments of judgment, this minor prophet that's you're telling me what God's saying, but it's not what I want to hear. So
Well, I was even thinking the Chaldeans, the Babylonians. Is that right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Habakkuk's done writing before they fully come onto the stage. So,
okay.
So I don't know if they're quite as worried about him at that point, but good thought, good question. Yeah. I mean, you get some of these things, especially when they're blatantly calling out the Chaldeans. You get some of the other prophets or some of the other places. Oh, we'll just, we'll use metaphor to talk about these people, and so we're not getting in as much trouble. Or like John in Revelation says Babylon instead of Rome, to kind of make sure that get out, don't get the Romans all in a huff against us. All right, and then Habakkuk chapter 3 is actually kind of it's a psalm, and it actually kind of formatted like a psalm, because here it says it's the prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet, according to this guy, and then at the end it talks about for the choir master using this instrument. So it's a song. O Lord, I have heard the report of you, and your work, O Lord, do I fear. In the midst of the years revive it. In the midst of the years make it known. In wrath remember mercy. Now that's a heck of a line, isn't it? All right, so the Hebrew word for wrath here kind of means trembling with rage. The same words kind of used sometimes to describe, war horses that are this kind of trembling, shaking after working really hard, or psyching themselves up for a charge. And again, the word play here kind of means, so Habakkuk's trembling with fear, but knows to call on God for mercy when facing God's wrath. So this whole song then seems to be part of Habakkuk's response to God and his judgment. Well, in wrath remember mercy. Okay, God, you're angry with us, but we also know you are a loving God, you're full of steadfast love, slow to anger. And so remember that. When you're angry with us, remember your mercy. Good prayer, good reminder for us to say to. All right, so God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Peor. And then we get Selah, because it's kind of like a psalm. We got those breath parks there. All right, his splendor covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like the light. Rays flashed from his hand, and there he veiled his power. Before him went pestilence, and plague followed at his heels. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and shook the nations. Then the eternal mountains were scattered. The everlasting hills sank low. His were the everlasting ways. So again, God's coming. He's going to shake everything, and everything you thought would last forever won't, but God will. So I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. The curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Was your wrath against the rivers, O Lord? Was your anger against the rivers, or your indignation against the sea, when you rode on your horses, on your chariot of salvation? You stripped the sheath from your bow, calling for many arrows. So when God comes, he's coming in might and power as well. Don't get in God's way when he comes. All right. Yeah, you split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and writhed. The raging waters swept on. The deep gave forth its voice. It lifted its hands on high. The sun and moon stood still in their place at the light of your arrows as they sped, at the flash of your glittering spear. You marched through the earth in fury. You threshed the nations in anger. You went out for the salvation of your people, for the salvation of your anointed. You crushed the head of the house of the wicked, laid him bare from thigh to neck. You pierced with his own arrows the heads of his warriors, who came like a whirlwind to scatter me, rejoicing as if to devour the poor in secret. You trampled the sea with your horses, the surging of mighty waters. I hear, and my body trembles, my lips quiver at the sound, rottenness enters into my bones, my legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. So all this bad stuff's happening, but I'm waiting for the day of trouble to come on the people who've invaded us. That I know they're coming, but I know you're coming too, and you will judge them, and you will smite them, and hurt them, and punish them, and judge them.
That had to be hard as it played out, though, because there was a lot of suffering in the meantime.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
God stepped in.
Speaking of suffering here, yeah. Though the fig tree should not blossom, though fruit be not nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. Yeah. You do that when the farm fails?
It's all gone.
No. Yeah. That's. And again, these are a lot of things that. A lot of the things that would be growing at the time in Israel, in Judah, and especially fig tree vines, olive, those tended to be things that you don't just plant and harvest pretty quickly, that they take time to be established and time to work. And, yeah, so, yeah, and no animals either. Yeah, do you trust God when there's no herd in your stalls? When the pig pen's empty? No cows in the dairy barn?
Yeah. No corn in the crib.
No corn in the crib, yeah. Habakkuk would have added that if he was in Iowa.
But it doesn't matter if the Cubs are losing because you're used to that.
Right.
Well, it's hard in a way, I guess maybe it isn't hard, but we don't, most of us here don't worry about the next meal. But there are people right now that do.
Oh, yeah.
Even a few in the streets of Ames,
Yeah.
there are. And it would be hard to take joy in God, wondering where the next meal's coming from. If yesterday no meal came, you lay there all day, sat there all day, walked all day, whatever you did. So that's quite
Yeah,
to have that kind of faith.
yeah. Trusting God. So, yeah. So enemy's coming, and now, yeah, you don't have anything, and yet you're still gonna trust in God.
When I keep this read again, or, look
Yeah.
at it, I wonder if Job,
Oh yeah, there's a lot of similarities here between Job's complaints and what Habakkuk's saying. Certainly, where that question of where is God in suffering? Why hasn't God come back and fixed everything? Why are we still suffering? Why are we going through all this? And the answer is sort of pretty similar. It ends up being kind of similar too, God tells us to have faith, and so we do. And we trust and wait. That God is faithful, God will answer. All right. Any other thoughts there? All right. Then the last verse. Oh, I forgot I had the graphic there. All right. Then the last verse. God the Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on high places. And it's to the choir master with stringed instruments. All right. Any of you ever read this? Okay, Pam has. So it's sort of a more modern day Pilgrim's Progress kind of thing. But because it's what, Much Afraid? Is that her name? What's the main character's name? Is it like Much Afraid or something? I mean, it's kind of this allegory of this woman who's I think named Much Afraid, and but ends up leaving behind the societal expectations from all these characters named weird things, and trust in the Lord that leads her up to high places and gives her the hinds feet she needs to get up there. And so trusting God and ignoring all these things that are trying to get you to not trust in God. Similar to Pilgrim's Progress.
You all know what Pilgrim's Progress is?
Yeah. So Pilgrim's Progress was work by John Bunyan in the 1600s. If I remember, yeah, it doesn't seem like it should be that old, right? But it's this allegory of the pilgrim to make his way through the holy city. If I'm remembering right, like in America, you generally the earliest colonials had two books. There was a Bible and Pilgrim's Progress.
Oh, right.
And so, so it's this allegorical story of this guy who trying to get to the kingdom of God, and he goes through all sorts of places that end up entering our vocabulary. I mean, Vanity Fair is a place where he goes, and I'm trying to remember. That's a few other things, and but yeah, allegorical, going through the struggles of Christian life to make it through. So again, how do Christians? What's our journey? How do we make our way? How do we go through things? And what does Christian life look like? And again, those kind of allegorical stories are written to inspire and give us hope. So, all right. So, I know I see deer, but I don't. We even have deer go through our yard, but there's no hills for them to climb on. So, unless we looked across the street and saw them maybe trying to climb up and cross the railroad tracks, but. All right, so that's Habakkuk. Again, God's judgment is coming with that question of where is God, why is God waiting, what's God going to do, and that He's not always going to answer the way we expect. He's probably not going to raise up Babylonians against us, but you never know. But instead, He calls us to trust in Him and turn back to Him in faith. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming, and we get Zephaniah next week.
Thank you.
Yep. So thank you.